don't take a pizza delivery job expecting to meet something that shouldn't exist. But on my third week driving for Marco's Pizzeria, I did, and it knew my name before I ever said it. I started delivering pizzas in October. The town was small, quiet, the kind of place where everyone knows the local shortcuts and which streetlights flicker at midnight. My manager, Sean, handed me the address on a slip of paper instead of putting it in the system. "Weird request," he said. "Customer called on the landline, didn't want to use the app." I shrugged. Older folks did that sometimes. The address was 440 Maple Court, apartment 7. I loaded the pizza into the insulated bag, checked my phone for directions, and headed out. The air outside smelled like wet leaves and chimney smoke. Maple Court was a low brick building on the edge of town, 3 stories, narrow windows, a few lights on, but most units were dark. I'd driven past this street 100 times, but I didn't remember ever noticing the building before. That thought stuck with me as I parked. The lobby door was propped open with a wooden wedge. No buzzer, no names on the mailboxes, just numbers scratched into strips of masking tape. I climbed the stairs to the second floor. The hallway smelled like mildew and something sweeter. Vanilla, maybe, or candle wax. Apartment 7 was at the end. The door was painted dark green, and the number hung crooked, like someone had tried to straighten it and given up. I knocked twice. Footsteps answered almost immediately, not walking, running. The door opened before I could step back. A man stood there, older, maybe 60, pale skin, thinning hair, wire-rimmed glasses. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You're right on time," he said. I held up the pizza. "1 large pepperoni." "That's correct." He didn't reach for it. Instead, he leaned forward slightly, tilting his head like he was studying me. "You're new," he said. "Started a few weeks ago." "I know." The way he said it made my skin prickle. I shifted my weight. "That'll be $18.75. He finally took the box, balancing it on one hand. With the other, he pulled a 20 from his pocket and pressed it into my palm. His fingers were cold. Too cold. "Keep the change," he said softly, "and tell Sean I said hello." I blinked. "You know Sean?" The man's smile widened. "Everyone knows Sean." He stepped back and closed the door before I could respond. I stood there for a moment, staring at the crooked number 7. Then I turned and walked quickly back down the hall. Something felt wrong. Not dangerous, just off. Like the air pressure had changed. When I got back to my car, I sat behind the wheel and looked up at the building. Apartment 7's window was dark, but I could see someone standing there. A shape, tall and still, watching me. I drove back to Marco's and clocked out early. Sean was wiping down the counter when I walked in. "How'd it go?" he asked. "Fine. Guy at Maple Court said to tell you hello." Sean froze. He looked at me, confused. "Maple Court." "Yeah, 440 Maple Court, apartment 7. He set the rag down slowly. "There's no 440 Maple Court." I pulled out my phone and showed him the address slip. Sean stared at it. Then he walked to the computer and pulled up our delivery log. Nothing. No order, no phone call, no record of the address. "I was just there," I said. "I gave him the pizza. He paid me." Sean's face went pale. "Show me the 20. I pulled it from my pocket and handed it over. He held it up to the light. The bill looked normal at first, but then I noticed the date printed near the bottom corner. Sean drove me back to Maple Court that night. We parked under the same flickering streetlight. The building was still there, but when we walked up to the second floor, the hallway was different. Apartment 7 wasn't at the end anymore. The last door was apartment 6. Sean knocked anyway, just to be sure. No answer. He tried the handle. Locked. We stood there in silence, staring at a door that didn't exist an hour ago. The next morning, I looked up the address online. 440 Maple Court used to be a boarding house. It burned down in 1989. 7 people died. One of them was a man named Arthur Lorne. He lived in apartment 7. In the only photo I could find, he was wearing wire rim glasses. I still deliver pizzas, but I don't take orders from the landline anymore. And whenever I drive past Maple Court, I check the second-floor windows. Sometimes, just for a second, I see a light on at the end of the hall, where apartment 7 used to be. I wonder if he's still waiting for his next delivery. Some customers tip well, some don't tip at all, and some pay with things you shouldn't accept. Quick question before we dive in. Have you ever gotten something that felt wrong the moment you touched it? Let me know in the comments. I'd been delivering for Gino's Pizza for almost 6 months when I met Mrs. Calloway. She lived on Redwood Lane, in one of those old craftsman houses with a wraparound porch and stained glass in the front door. The kind of house that looks beautiful in daylight. At night, though, it felt different, heavy, closed in, like it was holding its breath. Mrs. Calloway ordered every Thursday. Always the same thing, small margarita pizza, extra basil. Always requested me by name. At first, I thought it was nice. She was polite, soft-spoken. Always tipped exactly $5 in cash. But after the 3rd week, I started noticing things. The house was too quiet. No TV sounds, no music, no voices, just the creak of the floorboards and the faint ticking of a clock I never saw. The porch light was always off, even though she knew I was coming. And every time she opened the door, she stood just far enough back that I couldn't see her face clearly. Only her hands, thin, pale, fingers long and slightly crooked, like they'd been broken once and healed wrong. One Thursday in late November, the order came through as usual. I knocked on her door at exactly 7:30 p.m. The porch was dark. The only light came from a small window to the left, glowing soft and yellow behind a lace curtain. I waited, 30 seconds, a minute. Then I heard footsteps inside, slow, uneven. The door opened halfway. Mrs. Calloway stood in the shadow of the entryway, her face hidden. "Good evening," she said quietly. "Hi, Mrs. Calloway. 1 margarita, extra basil." I held out the box. She took it with both hands, cradling it gently. "Thank you, dear." She set the pizza on a small table just inside the door, then reached into the pocket of her cardigan. But instead of pulling out cash, she handed me a small envelope. Cream-colored, sealed with red wax. "For you," she said. I hesitated. "Oh, you don't have to." "Please," she interrupted. Her voice was firmer now. "It's important." I didn't know what to say, so I took it. The envelope was warm. Not like it had been in her pocket. Warm like it had been sitting near a fire. "Thank you," I said. She nodded once, then closed the door. I sat in my car for a few minutes, staring at the envelope. There was no name on it. No writing at all. Just the wax seal, pressed with some kind of symbol I didn't recognize. I thought about opening it, but something stopped me. A feeling, low and cold in my stomach. I shoved the envelope into my glove box and drove back to Gino's. The next Thursday, Mrs. Calloway ordered again. Same time, same pizza. This time, when I knocked, she answered faster. The door opened just a crack. "Did you open it?" she asked. Her voice was sharper now, urgent. "The envelope?" I said. "No, not yet." There was a long pause. Then she let out a breath that sounded almost like relief. "Good," she whispered. "Don't." She handed me the pizza money, exact change, and closed the door before I could ask anything else. I went home that night and pulled the envelope out of my glove box. It was still warm. I turned it over in my hands, studying the wax seal. The symbol looked like a circle with 3 lines cutting through it. Sharp, deliberate, I broke the seal. Inside was a single piece of paper, folded twice. I unfolded it carefully. The paper was old, yellowed at the edges, and written in thin, spidery handwriting were 4 words: "She is not alone." I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about Mrs. Calloway's voice, the way she asked if I'd opened it, the way she sounded relieved when I said no. The next morning, I called Gino's and told my manager I couldn't take deliveries to Redwood Lane anymore. He didn't ask why. 2 weeks later, another driver mentioned Mrs. Calloway. "That lady on Redwood," he said. "She gave me an envelope last night." My stomach dropped. "Did you open it?" He shrugged. "Not yet. It's in my car." I told him not to. He laughed and said I was being paranoid. He didn't show up for his next shift, or the one after that. When I finally called him, his phone went straight to voicemail. His roommate said he'd left town suddenly. No explanation, no forwarding address, just gone. A month later, I drove past Mrs. Calloway's house during the day. The porch was empty. The windows were dark. A for sale sign stood crooked in the front yard. I parked and walked up to the porch, my heart pounding. I looked through the front window. The house was empty. No furniture, no curtains, nothing. But on the floor in the center of the room, someone had drawn the same symbol from the wax seal. A circle, 3 sharp lines. And around it, in a spiral, were dozens of envelopes, all of them sealed. All of them are waiting. I don't deliver pizzas anymore. But sometimes, late at night, I check my mailbox, just to make sure there's nothing there that wasn't sent by someone I know. I still wonder who she was writing to. When you deliver pizzas long enough, you learn to trust your gut, the address that feels wrong. The door opens too fast, the customer who won't meet your eyes. But sometimes your gut tells you to run, and your feet won't listen. Real quick, have you ever felt like someone was watching you even when you couldn't see them? Drop a comment and tell me about it. I took the job at Sal's Pizzeria because it was close to campus and the hours were flexible. Most deliveries were easy: dorms, apartment complexes, family homes with porch lights and doormats that said, "Welcome." But every town has an edge. A place where the streetlights stop and the roads turn to gravel, where the houses sit farther apart and the trees grow closer together. That's where I was headed on a Saturday night in February. The order came in at 9:45 p.m. 2 large pizzas, no special instructions. The address was 1401 Pinecrest Road. I'd never delivered there before. When I plugged it into my GPS, the route took me past the last gas station, past the turnoff to the state park, and onto a narrow road that curved through dense woods. No houses, no lights, just trees pressing in on both sides. After 10 minutes, my phone said I'd arrived, but all I saw was a gravel driveway disappearing into the dark. I turned in slowly, my headlights cutting through the mist that clung to the ground. The cabin sat in a small clearing. 1 story, wood siding, a steep roof, and 2 front doors, side by side, identical, both painted dark red. I sat in my car for a moment staring. I'd seen duplexes before, shared entryways, but this wasn't that. The cabin was small, too small to be 2 separate units, and there were no numbers, no signs, nothing to tell me which door to use. I grabbed the pizzas and stepped out into the cold. The air smelled like pine and wet earth. Somewhere in the distance I heard water moving. A creek, maybe. I walked up to the porch, my breath fogging in front of me. The doors were identical, same brass handles, same small windows at eye level, covered with curtains from the inside. I stood between them, uncertain. Then I knocked on the left door. No answer. I waited, counting to 10 in my head. Still nothing. So I knocked on the right door. This time I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate. The door opened halfway. A woman stood there, middle-aged, brown hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. She wore a gray sweater and jeans. She looked normal, but her expression wasn't. She stared at me like I'd just said something terrible. "You knocked on the other door first," she said quietly. Yeah, sorry, I wasn't sure which." "You can't do that." Her voice was calm, but there was something underneath it. Fear, maybe, or warning. "I'm sorry," I said again, holding up the pizzas. "I have your order." She glanced over her shoulder, then stepped out onto the porch and pulled the door almost closed behind her. "How much?" she asked. $28.50. She handed me 2 20s, her hands shaking slightly. "Keep it," she said, "and leave. Now." "Is everything okay?" She looked at me for a long moment. Then she leaned in just a little and whispered, "Don't knock on the left door. Ever." Before I could respond, she took the pizzas and stepped back inside. The door closed. I heard the lock click. I stood there, staring at the 2 doors. The left one was still and silent, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was standing just on the other side, listening. I turned and walked quickly back to my car. As I reached for the door handle, I heard it. A knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks, coming from inside the cabin, from behind the left door. I didn't wait. I got in my car, started the engine, and drove. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the wheel. When I got back to Sal's, I told my manager about the cabin. He frowned. "Pinecrest Road?" "Yeah, 1401. He pulled up the order on the computer. "That's weird," he said. "This is the first time anyone from that address has ordered." "What do you mean?" "I've been here 11 years. I've never seen that address come through before." 3 weeks later, another order came in for 1401 Pinecrest Road. A different driver took it. When he came back, he looked pale. "That place is messed up," he said. "There are 2 front doors." "I know," I said. "Which one did you knock on?" "The right one." "Good." He stared at me. "Why? What's behind the left one?" I didn't answer because I didn't know, and I didn't want to find out. A month after that, I was scrolling through a local news site and saw a headline that made my stomach drop. "Body found in cabin fire on Pinecrest Road." I clicked on the article. The cabin had burned down 2 nights earlier. Firefighters found a woman's body inside. She'd been dead for weeks, but here's the part that stayed with me. The fire investigator said the blaze started in 2 places, one on each side of the cabin, like someone had set it from both doors. I drove out there a few days later. The cabin was gone, just a blackened foundation and piles of ash. But the stone steps were still there, leading up to where the porch used to be. And carved into the top step, crude and deep, were 2 words: "Wrong door." I quit Sal's the next week. Now I work at a coffee shop. Day shifts only, no deliveries. But sometimes late at night, I think about those 2 doors. And I wonder what would have happened if I'd knocked on the left one first. Some questions are better left unanswered. Most people smile when you hand them a pizza. It's comfort food, a small moment of joy at the end of a long day. But the man at 823 Oak Ridge Drive never smiled. And after my 3rd delivery, I understood why. Before we go on, have you ever kept going back to a place that made you uncomfortable just because you had to? Tell me about it in the comments. I started noticing him in late September. He ordered every Tuesday and Friday like clockwork, always between 6 and 6:15 p.m. Always the same thing: large pepperoni, well done. Extra napkins. The address was 823 Oak Ridge Drive, a quiet street lined with maple trees and older ranch-style homes. His house was neat: light blue siding, white shutters, a tidy lawn. From the outside, it looked like every other house on the block. The first time I delivered to him, he answered the door in a gray t-shirt and jeans. He was maybe 40, average height, thinning hair, pale skin. Nothing about him stood out, except his eyes. They didn't blink as much as they should, and when he looked at me, it felt like he was reading something written just behind my face. "Thank you," he said, taking the pizza. He handed me exact change. No tip. Then he closed the door before I could say anything. The second delivery was the same. Same quiet greeting, same exact change, same unblinking stare. But this time, as I turned to leave, I glanced back. He was standing in the window, watching me walk to my car. Not moving, just watching. I waved awkwardly. He didn't wave back. By the fourth delivery, I started to dread seeing his address pop up on the screen. It wasn't that he was rude. He wasn't. It was the stillness, the way he stood in the doorway like a mannequin, the way the house felt too quiet, even though I could hear a television playing faintly in the background, and the way he always watched me leave. One Friday in October, I knocked on his door at 6:10 p.m. He answered immediately, like he'd been standing there waiting. "Good evening," he said. His voice was flat, emotionless. "Hey, one large pepperoni, well done." I held out the box. He took it, set it on the small table inside the entryway. Then he handed me the money. But this time, his hand lingered, just for a second, long enough for me to notice how cold his fingers were. "Do you like your job?" he asked. I blinked, caught off guard. Yeah, it's fine." "You're here often?" "I mean, I deliver all over. But yeah, I guess I've been here a few times." He nodded slowly. "I like routine," he said. "It helps." "Helps with what?" He didn't answer. He just smiled. It was the first time I'd seen him smile, and I immediately wished I hadn't. The smile didn't reach his eyes. It was too wide, too deliberate, like he'd learned it from a book. "Have a good night," he said, and closed the door. I stood there for a moment, my heart beating faster than it should. Then I walked back to my car, feeling his eyes on me the entire time. The next Tuesday, his order came through again. My manager called me over. "You want me to send Jake instead?" I hesitated. "Why?" "You just look, I don't know, uncomfortable." I shook my head. "No, it's fine. I'll take it." I didn't know why I said that. Maybe because I didn't want to seem paranoid. Maybe because part of me wanted to prove to myself that I was overreacting. When I arrived at 823 Oak Ridge, something was different. The porch light was off. It was always on before. I knocked, my pulse quickening. No answer. I knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. I pulled out my phone to call the customer, but before I could, the door opened. Not all the way, just a crack. "Leave it on the porch," he said from inside. His voice sounded strained. "Wrong. I need a signature," I said. "Leave it." "Sir, I can't." The door opened wider. He stood there in the darkness of the entryway, half his face hidden in shadow. "Please," he whispered, "just leave it and go." There was something in his voice that stopped me from arguing. Fear. I set the pizza on the porch mat. "Okay," I said quietly. "It's there." He reached out quickly, grabbed the box, and pulled it inside. Then he closed the door. I heard the lock click, and then faintly I heard something else. A voice, not his. Someone else was in the house. I drove back to the pizzeria and told my manager what happened. He frowned. "That's weird. You think he's okay?" "I don't know. Maybe he's got company, didn't want to deal with the door." Maybe. But I didn't believe that. His order came through again the following Friday. This time, I asked my manager to send someone else. He did. When Jake came back, I asked him how it went. "Fine," he said. "Guy seemed normal. Paid exact change. Watched me leave, though. That was a little weird." I felt a strange sense of relief. Whatever I'd heard that night, maybe it was nothing. 2 weeks later, I saw the news. A body had been found at 823 Oak Ridge Drive. The homeowner had called the police himself. He said he'd been keeping his brother in the basement. His brother, who had died 3 years earlier. They didn't release many details, but the article mentioned that neighbors had noticed the man ordering food regularly. Always the same thing, always on the same days. Police said it was part of a ritual, a way to maintain normalcy, to pretend everything was fine. I think about him sometimes, the way he stood so still, the way he asked if I liked my job, the way he said routine helped. I wonder if he was trying to hold on to something, or if he was trying to keep something else at bay. I still deliver pizzas, but I don't take orders to Oak Ridge Drive anymore. Not because I'm scared, but because I know now that sometimes the scariest thing isn't what's waiting behind the door. It's what people are. Some routines aren't about comfort. They're about control. They say you should never follow someone who tells you to come inside. But what if they're a child, standing alone in the rain, asking for help? What if everything in you says something's wrong, but walking away feels worse? Quick question for you. Have you ever helped a stranger and immediately regretted it? Or wished you had? Let me know where you're listening from tonight. It was raining the night I met her. Not a drizzle, a downpour. The kind that turns roads into rivers and makes your windshield wipers useless. I was driving back from a delivery on the outskirts of town, taking the back roads to avoid traffic. That's when I saw her. She was standing on the side of the road, a little girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old, wearing a bright yellow raincoat with the hood pulled up. She wasn't walking, wasn't trying to flag anyone down, just standing there in the rain, facing the road. I slowed down. Something about the way she stood there so still made my chest tighten. I rolled down my window. "Hey, are you okay?" She didn't move. I put the car in park and leaned out further. "Do you need help?" This time she turned her head, slowly. Her face was shadowed by the hood, but I could see her eyes, wide, dark, unblinking. "My mom's inside," she said quietly. Her voice was flat, emotionless. "Inside where?" I asked. She pointed to a house about 50 yards down the road. It was set back from the street, half hidden by overgrown trees. No lights on. No car in the driveway. "Is she okay?" I asked. The girl didn't answer right away. Then, softly, "She won't wake up." My stomach dropped. I should have called 911 right then, but something about the way she said it made me hesitate. "Okay," I said. "Let me help. Can you show me?" She nodded once, then turned and started walking toward the house. I grabbed my phone and followed her. The rain was coming down harder now. My shoes squelched in the mud as I walked up the gravel driveway. The girl moved ahead of me, her yellow raincoat bright against the darkness. She didn't look back, didn't slow down. When we reached the front porch, she stopped. The door was already open, just a crack. "She's in the kitchen," the girl said. Then she stepped inside. I hesitated at the threshold. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to leave. But I couldn't. A kid's mom was in there, maybe hurt, maybe worse. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The house smelled wrong, not like rot or mold, like something old, stale, airless, like no one had opened a window in years. The hallway was dark, but I could see the faint glow of a light coming from the back of the house. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating a narrow hallway with peeling wallpaper and a sagging ceiling. The girl was already halfway down the hall, still walking. "Wait," I said. "Let me go first." She stopped, turned around, and for the first time I saw her face clearly. She wasn't wearing the hood anymore. Her skin was pale, too pale, Her hair hung in wet, tangled strands around her face, and her eyes, they were black. Not just the pupils, the entire eye, like someone had filled them with ink. I took a step back. "Who are you?" I whispered. She tilted her head, studying me. "I told you," she said. "My mom's inside." "Where's your mom?" She smiled. It was a small, quiet smile, and it was the most unsettling thing I'd ever seen. "She's waiting," the girl said. Then she turned and walked into the kitchen. I should have run. I should have left that house and never looked back. But I didn't. I followed her. The kitchen was small, old appliances, cracked linoleum floor, a single bulb hanging from the ceiling, casting harsh yellow light. And in the center of the room, sitting at a small table, was a woman. She was facing away from me. Her head was down, resting on her arms like she'd fallen asleep. "Ma'am?" I said quietly. She didn't move. The girl stood beside her, watching me. "She won't wake up," the girl repeated. I stepped closer, my heart hammering. I reached out and gently touched the woman's shoulder. She was cold, ice cold. I pulled my hand back. "How long has she been like this?" I asked, my voice shaking. The girl didn't answer. I looked at her and she was smiling again. That same small, empty smile. "A long time," she said. I pulled out my phone to call 911, but there was no signal. I tried again. Nothing. "You should sit down," the girl said. "What?" "You should sit down," she repeated, gesturing to the empty chair across from the woman. "I need to go," I said, backing toward the door. The girl's smile faded. "You can't leave yet." "I have to call someone. Get help." "She doesn't need help anymore." I turned and ran. I bolted down the hallway, my flashlight beam bouncing off the walls. Behind me, I heard footsteps. Small, light, fast. "Wait," the girl called. "You didn't say goodbye." I didn't stop. I reached the front door and yanked it open. The rain hit me like a wall, cold and sharp. I stumbled down the porch steps and ran to my car. My hands were shaking so hard, I could barely get the key in the ignition. The engine started. I threw the car into drive and sped away, my tires spinning in the mud. I looked in the rearview mirror. The girl was standing in the doorway, still smiling, still watching. As I drove, I glanced down at my passenger seat, and my blood turned to ice. Sitting there, folded neatly, was a yellow raincoat. I pulled over a mile down the road and threw the raincoat out the window. Then I called 911. I told them everything. The girl, the house, the woman at the table. They said they'd send someone. The next day I drove past the house in daylight. I had to see it again. Had to know it was real. But when I got there, the house was gone, not abandoned. Gone. Just an empty lot, overgrown grass, no foundation, no driveway, like it had never been there at all. I asked around town, showed people the address. No one remembered a house there. No one remembered a little girl in a yellow raincoat. But sometimes, on rainy nights when I'm driving the back roads, I see her, standing on the side of the road, yellow raincoat, hood up, facing the street, waiting for someone to stop. I never stop anymore. Thank you for listening to all 5 stories. I hope they gave you that gentle chill you were looking for. If you enjoyed these pizza delivery horror stories, let me know in the comments which one stayed with you the most. And if you've ever had a strange delivery experience of your own, I'd love to hear about it. Stay safe out there. And remember, not every door should be answered. Until next time.